For several decades, some of Atlanta's finest women, be it elderly and grandmothers, have been carrying banners protesting, opposing war, gun control, advocating voters' rights, Black Lives Matters movement, the Civil Rights movement, the Black Panthers movement, LGBTQ equality, climate change issues, homelessness, and immigration issues, all while forging a fight for peace and justice globally. Here's some of the stories of America's most passionate and courageous, brilliant-minded PhD recipients, entrepreneurs, ministers, nurses, corporate VPs, the list goes on and on. Via Zoom, I've had the privilege of looking at these sheroes and their stories of where it started for them and their involvement in what's known as Atlanta Grandmothers for Peace.
No longer can we sit on the sidelines and be quiet. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now.
We're trying to save the children. We want to save the children. We shall not be moved. Bring them home. Support our troops. Bring them home. Support our troops. Send us instead. Send us instead. Send us instead. Send us instead. Grandmothers for peace. Stop your right war. Grandmothers for peace. Stop your right war. Together, we're gonna let it shine. We're in this together. We're gonna let it shine. We're in this together. We're gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Atlanta Grandmothers for Peace. We exist. We exist.
Unfortunately, this is private property and we're going to have to ask you to leave.
I'm Lonnie. I was born in Coquille, Oregon, a very small town far from any population center. But I've lived my adult life in Atlanta, Georgia. I am now 79 years old. We formed in 2008. Atlanta Grandmothers for Peace has had a special meaning for me because it has brought together personal friendship and political activism. At the time of our civil disobedience arrest opposing the Iraq War, I never envisioned our action leading to a new organization. Yet, here we are 13 years later, still together with other women having joined us to become integral to the group. In 2008, like all of us, I was active in the movement opposing the US invasion of Iraq. We decided on the civil disobedience arrest as an attempt to focus additional attention on what we considered a criminal foreign policy. Although I am not a biological grandmother, I want to leave all grandchildren, the next generation, a more humane world. Before our arrest, we were given some non-violence training by Reverend Tim McDonald, an experienced civil rights leader here in Atlanta. It is so interesting to me that during our training, he told us that through this action, we would forge a tight bond. This, in fact, has happened. After the action, we became closer friends. And when other women wanted to become part of the group, this bringing together of personal friendship with the political activism has continued. Now, it's 2021, and other grandmothers are among my very closest friends. And 13 years older, I am not as politically active as before, but I do remain politically engaged. Our members focus on different issues, and we share our involvements with each other. For example, several members are deeply involved in supporting newly arrived immigrants, many of whom have been detained by our government. While giving just a little support myself, I have learned a great deal from these other women. I've been working for progressive political candidates in recent times and have found it extremely rewarding to work closely with other grandmothers. For all these reasons, Atlanta Grandmothers for Peace is both personally and politically very meaningful to me.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. It's touching my heart to see you come from a small town to what wasn't a big city, but is a big city now, and be active in the community. So I thank you so much for contributing today.
Barbara Joy. I'm 78 years old, and I grew up in New York City. I've lived here ever since in Atlanta. So I got started as an activist in my freshman year of college when I joined a picket line at Woolworth's in support of the very students that many referred to in the sit-ins in North Carolina. I was so over the McCarthy era. And went on from there to be active in the 60s. And then eventually, after moving to Atlanta, try to make a long story short, helped with a underground newspaper that was very interesting, starting a non-commercial radio station. But then later, in 2006, I joined the Democratic Socialists of America and became an officer in our local chapter and served for 8 years on the national leadership body. But I was not one of the original jailbirds with Grandmothers for Peace, but I became a supporting member and had the honor of being arrested with Minnie in a labor action later, as she mentioned. And I helped with the peace essay contest that we held for high school students. I was appalled to find out that only the immigrant children knew we were at war. The people who had the children who entered with, essays, talked about peace in the family, peace in the community. They were not aware of the United States history of militarism and intervention in other countries. That was a learning experience, but I enjoyed contributing to the event, which was, the awards were hosted by John Lewis, and it was a great thing. Did that for a few years. So I've been finding the friendship of the Grandmothers for Peace very important in my life. I hope to continue to support whatever they do, whatever we do, and I'm very happy to be a member. So I'm still active in DSA and a number of other things in a progressive group at the Senior Independent Living condo where I am now, which I found out about from another member of this group, Grandmothers for Peace. She started a progressive club here, and so we were able to do some Black Lives Matter support and get out the vote, things like that. And I don't intend to stop unless I have to doing this kind of stuff.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, it's so interesting that you ladies started in the 60s. First of all, I love everything about the 60s. So thank you very much for starting in the 60s. And you go from the 60s to Black Lives Matter. And in that time span, I want to just pose this question. Has anything changed? Or how do you feel about what's going on? Because there's a younger generation that's out there doing what you ladies started doing. Just briefly, thank you.
My husband has a sign, a sticker on his guitar case that says, "I can't believe I'm still protesting this crap."
Oh, I love that. Well said. Thank you so
Carol
much.
Sandiford. I am 79 years old. I was born in Decatur, Georgia in 1941. And then I grew up mostly in Augusta, Georgia, but eventually I ended up back here. I can't pinpoint exactly when my activist self came to life. I think I was at the University of Cincinnati in 1966 and 67. And I remember that there were curfews that started, and we could not go out after 9 o'clock at night. I was living on the campus at the university, actually living in a graduate student dorm, and my housemate, a roommate, was a young Jewish woman from New York. And I think a combination of living with her, and she was very much an activist herself, and the curfews that were going on, because there were fires. This was when there were things going on all over the country, with looting and fires. And it was before Martin Luther King's assassination, but began to raise my consciousness. And when I came back from there to Georgia, to Atlanta, I think I had a hiatus here and there, but I did begin to go to protests and marches, and especially, I know in the 80s I was in Washington twice at marches and protests. And somewhere along the way I got involved doing volunteer work with, when Bobby Paul was at the Georgia One. And they were doing voter registration. And so I did that for several years. And of course, being around Bobby Paul was a great inspiration. And I honestly can't remember the first time I heard about Grandmothers for Peace, whether it was through Bobby or through Lorraine, because Lorraine and I both attended the same congregation. But however it was, I heard about the arrest, and then I began to get more information about them. And eventually I thought, okay, I'm not a biological grandmother, but I want to be a part of this group. And so fortunately, they allowed me to become part of this wonderful organization. And there are so many things that I value about being part of it, but the three things that came to my mind, memories that stand out. And I'm just going to say I'm a disciple. Many of the other women in this group, and some who aren't here today, are my inspiration, and I follow in their footsteps. I've never aspired to do all the incredible things that these women do, but I've just tried to be a disciple and do what I can to support this group and their commitment to peace and justice. Going to the corner at Colony Square, Bernice, Ann Monty, I'm not sure probably Bobby Paul, Judy, maybe you were there too, but there were many of this group that were there every Friday for years. I didn't go every Friday. I just went a few Fridays, but the Fridays that I did go, I stood in awe. I stood in awe with whatever placard I had in my hand and watching all the three-piece suits come by down there at Colony Square, looking at all these gray-haired women protesting war. And some of them would just kind of snob us or, give us a smirk. But the faithfulness of these women to do this. And so the few times that I did go on Fridays and stand with that group is etched in my memory forever, because I was so in awe of the dedication and the commitment to peace. And then the essays with the students. This was another experience that really was meaningful to me. And I think one of the years that we did that, Lorraine and I worked together to do a spreadsheet and to identify all the different schools. And so we played a role in that year. And then when John Lewis was there to help give the awards and give to these young students. And each time we did those ceremonies, I don't remember how many years we did them, it was so incredibly moving to me to see these grandmothers inspiring these young students to speak their mind, to write their feelings and thoughts in these wonderful essays about peace, and to raise their consciousness, preparing another generation for taking over this work. And then finally, the third thing was going to Montgomery, to the EJI, the Equal Justice Initiative, with the Grandmothers for Peace. I believe I rode with Bobby Paul, Judy, I think maybe you were in that car with us. I know Gloria Tatum was. We rode to Montgomery to meet the Grannies Respond caravan that was going all the way from New York and various different states on their way to the border. And that experience of going and going to the Unitarian Church and having a meal that those wonderful people prepared and meeting the grannies who were in the caravan. We also went to the Legacy Memorial, went to the museum. And again, it was just to share that. I had actually been there before. I had been there for the opening of that wonderful memorial with a group from the Shambhala Center. But going this time with the grannies, it was with a different purpose in mind, to support. I knew I couldn't go to the border, but to do what we could to support these other grandmothers from all over the country who were going to the border to support the refugees and the immigrants who were coming into our country. So those are three of just many, many, many wonderful experiences I've had with the Grandmothers for Peace. But the main thing I want to say is to Minnie Ruffin, to Ann Marnie, to Bobby Paul, to Bernice, to so many of you, you are my inspiration. And thank you for letting me be a part of this group. I love you all. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, I'm getting a little verklempt. I shouldn't, I'm sorry. I want to thank you for being a disciple, because you've honored the ladies, and now we are honoring you by, doing this. And we so appreciate what you said, and finding out that you ladies actually went to the border to help. And I've heard that you ladies were on the corner at Colony Square. And important, and you ladies are all American history, and that's why we're doing this.
My name is Miss Bass. A lot of people call me Birdie. Right. I have my greatest thanks is to Ann Money, who called me one day and asked me if I would like to join a group with them. I said that would be wonderful, because I have been active since I've been 15 years old. And at 16, I was sitting at Union Station at the counter with the Pullman Union, protesting the fact that they wouldn't serve any Black people meals. Terrible, terrible. Anyhow, I went over to Ann's, and I was really delighted to find a group that was active in making this world a little better. I had been in the women's apparel business for 37 years. And as you know, I couldn't talk politics with my customers. So decided our first mission would be to the recruitment office. And we were told to just mill around the big center where I think Publix is and Home Depot and etc. So I got there about 8:30 with my husband, and I was given a lot of money because I couldn't go in a paddy wagon if you paid me. I just would die. So I put money in a belt around my waist with all this money in it. We had a banner ready upstairs on the balcony of this building in the shopping center. And the only group that we called was Associated Press, because we felt like they would not tell anyone we were going to have this happen. So I was told to call Channel 3, ABC, CBS, NBC, and I was immediately calling them while the women went into the office. When the women got in the office, they told the fellow that was there, the Army recruiting fellow, that they wanted to join the Army. He said, "What are you doing here? You're old women." "No, we've come to get into the Army." "Well, what do you want to do that for?" "Well, we don't want our children and our grandchildren in any war, and we don't want any of them killed." We immediately got on the telephone and called up the Army group, the military police, and he called up the Atlanta police station. In the meantime, I was calling up all of the channels to get on out there. The women sat there and didn't move. All of a sudden, all these police cars come. The parking lot is full of police cars, and all of a sudden, all of these military trucks and cars. What is going on? People from all over this shopping center are piling up around there and want to know what the hell is going on around here. The policeman went upstairs and told the women, "Listen, you have to get out of here. This is a government building here, and you cannot stay in here. Get on downstairs." So when they got downstairs, they all held hands and started to sing. That was great. We were holding the signs. Everyone was wondering, what is happening? Another policeman came up and said, "If you don't get out of this shopping center, we're going to have to arrest you." The girls didn't say anything. They kept singing. All of a sudden, the paddy wagon shows up. That was it. One at a time, the women were put into the paddy wagon. And as I understand, the paddy wagon stopped downtown for a while, and they were talking to other policemen and just being nasty and letting the women just sit there in that hot paddy wagon. Well, I had my money in my purse around my waist, and I had to get to the police station to get these girls out, but I was not going to pay any money. I knew I wasn't going to pay any money. So I went there and talked to a woman behind a desk, and she said, "I can't do anything for you. Go into the other building." I said, "Listen, these women did not kill anyone. They did not rob a bank. What are you holding them for?" "I'm sorry, I can't tell you." So I didn't know what to do. So I decided to call downtown at the police station. And I spoke to the fellow that was the head of the jail. He said, "Lady, I can't do anything for you, period." Well, now what am I going to do? So I decided to call them every half hour. I was going to just bother the hell out of them. So I called constantly, and didn't get any information. He said, "I can't help you." I went up to the woman at the desk there. She said, "Don't bother me anymore." I can't do anything. So about 10 o'clock at night, it was like 9:30, I got a call that the women would start getting out at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock came, no women are showing up. I kept looking at the door where they come out, didn't see anybody. All of a sudden, around 10:30, the first one came out. So happy, so happy. Well, after all that, all the women came out and we decided to go to Manuel's Tavern to have a drink and something to eat. Well, Manuel's Tavern, as everyone knows, is a place that people that are interested in politics meet. And this was the only place to go in Atlanta. So we went there and the women started telling stories. And one woman said, well, you see, I had this sign hanging from my neck and it says I take medicine. And I have to take medicine every so often. So I let them know that. But they took her to take her medicine when her medicine time came. And they took her room in and they stripped her. And then they gave her her medicine. And then one of our women, Ella Ruth, they were all sitting against the wall, they said. And Ella Ruth was sitting there kind of slumped down because she was exhausted. At that time, she was the oldest one in our group. Hit her on the shoulder and said, lady, sit up straight. Well, they got hungry, so they gave them a bologna sandwich. Isn't that exciting? Anyhow, we all had a good time at Manuel's. We knew we just did something that was really important to do. And I am so happy that Ann Money introduced me to grandmothers because, as everyone says, we made wonderful friends, and we've had very successful actions. And I dedicate this to my husband, George, who fought in the Spanish Civil War and also left France and went into the Second World War. So I was very, very fortunate to be married to a great activist. And I thank you, women, and I love y'all.
Well, we thank you for sharing that story. I think it's hilarious that you had the money strapped ready to get your girls out, but you didn't have to use it. Thank God you didn't have to use it, and thank God that you ladies were okay. And we thank you so much.
My name is Crystal Gay, and I've been with the Grandmother Peace Service since 2017. I've learned so much. They're a wonderful organization to learn and work with, very heavy into politics. They support me with the homeless out in the community, and I love it, and I thank God just to be with them.
Absolutely.
My name is Judy Condor. I'm 73 years old, and I'm from the Steel Creek community, which is a rural community outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. And when I was born, my parents lived off the grid. And my father, as a child, my father was greatly active in the labor unions. And so I grew up with a real sense of equality, economic equality and workers' rights. And then as an adult, I became involved in an interracial relationship, which I was involved in for decades, and became a part of a Black family. And because of that, I've always had a great empathy for racial justice. But unlike the rest of the grandmothers, I haven't been an activist all my life. I was corporate. I was a high school English teacher in a Black, inner city, all Black schools for 10 years, and then I went corporate. And it wasn't until maybe, Ann Monty can tell me this, 2004, 2005, because I'm not good with dates, that I saw on TV about the weapons of mass destruction, and I'm like, there are no weapons of mass destruction. We're getting ready to get into another Vietnam. And right after that, I met Ann Monty at the Candler Park Festival. She was tabling, and I got on the email list, and they started saying, I would get these emails, we're meeting on this corner, bring signs. And so I got me a little sign, and I started going out there, and I didn't know anybody, and I would just stand out there, and then I would leave. And I did that for a while, just on my own. And then I decided to buy a video camera. And then I started following Ann Monty and all the Georgia Peace and Justice Coalition. I started following them around, videoing their stuff and putting it on YouTube. And the rest, and then, through them, I met other groups, and then I got involved in the Grandmothers for Peace. And the rest is really history. So I've been videoing the Grandmothers for Peace for 17 years, 14 years, I don't even know, 14 years. And it's just been a real honor to be a part of the group and to meet all these really strong, active women.
Well, it's judging from what you just said about you becoming an activist later in life, you've always been an activist. It's in your heart. It doesn't just start when you start participating. It's in your heart. It's called kindness, and that's what you have. And being involved in and getting involved with a Black family just enhanced what you are. And we thank you so much. Are we having fun yet?
Minnie Ruffin. My age is 79, and my hometown is Tarboro, North Carolina. I was a civil rights activist, and I started in the 60s. The sit-down demonstrations started at my college, North Carolina A&T. And the 4 students who started it were in my freshman class. And that's when I got active. I got to Berkeley, California, and then I participated in the Black Panther breakfast program.
I don't think the women got the credit for what they have done in the civil rights movement or the Black Panther movement. And every time you saw Dr. King, usually Lizzie King was marching with him. She didn't get any credit. And Abernathy, when he marched, his wife was marching with him. And then the women were doing their organizing too. Even the Bloody Sunday march that John Lewis got beat to death almost, that was organized, that rally was organized by women.
I see. So you were at Berkeley at the time, and you were...
Yes, I was in nutrition, studying nutrition research.
Yeah, I see. And that's how you got involved with the Black Panthers.
Yeah, you have to do some community service. And I decided to work with the Black Panther Party's breakfast program.
So you feel that the women did not get enough credit, well, didn't get any credit
No, even the outstanding ones didn't get enough credit. Like Fred Hampton's wife was pregnant and was in bed with him when he got assassinated. And she was trying to help him, but they didn't mention her that much in the movie. And Coretta Scott didn't get credit until she set up the King Center, and she had a section for herself in that King Center.
That was very smart of her.
Right. Rita Samuels didn't get credit. They did go back and put her name in the Freedom Walk of Fame at Ebenezer, the new church. But they didn't have a single woman there one time.
And that's why I really feel it's important that we're doing this, acknowledging Grandmothers for Peace, because you ladies have been around for a long time, and you have been fighting this fight. And that really, I'm just grateful to God that I even get to hear you say these things, because, as a kid growing up and looking at the Black Panther Party and understanding that they were criminals, the government led everyone to believe that they were criminals. You guys were doing good things for the community. You were out there, and those of us who were not a Black Panther member, of course we all wanted to be.
I wish you could know all of the programs that the Black Panther had going. They had a breakfast program, an education program, a shoe program, a transportation program, and about 15 different programs. A food program, and this was before the United States had USDA had implemented their breakfast or lunch program.
Oh, so basically the Black Panther Party
started the breakfast program.
That's right, and they followed suit. The government followed suit.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They were the innovators.
Yeah, they didn't have lunch programs in all schools. They had a milk program in some schools, but the Black Panther Party was the first organization ever to have a breakfast program, and that's not widely known.
Wow, just another thing that we invented that nobody knows about, but they will after this.
The programs that the Black Panther started, the Black Lives Matter picked up too, and they are doing a great job too, and it was started by women.
Well, that's the way it is, you know that.
Yeah.
Even with the suffrage movement, the right to vote, those women, black and white women, were out there.
Started by black women.
That's right.
This movement started by black women.
Wow.
They should get the credit they deserve either. When you see the founders, it's usually white. It was black women who kept that going.
And that's why it's so important that we are doing what we do to talk to you ladies who were there. You were there and you were a part of everything. And like you said, women did not get the credit that they deserve. And that's a part of what we're doing, just letting you have your say. You were there.
Yeah.
I met Ann Money on a street corner in Atlanta, and that's how I hooked up with the Georgia Peace and Justice Coalition. And from there, Ann was the one who founded the Grandmothers for Peace. And since that time, the mission, you see, the first one of the mission in the mission statement is we were promoting peace and justice. And Barbara Joy and I got arrested another time for trying to make sure that the 750 workers didn't get terminated. They were trying to get rid of 750 workers from AT&T. And we sat down in the administrative building of AT&T, and that's where we were arrested. And the third time I got arrested in Atlanta was with Moral Monday, and Lorraine and I were involved in that. And we got arrested for trying to expand Medicaid in Georgia. Dr. Warnock was also, Reverend Warnock, rather, was also in jail at the same time. But we have been working for peace and justice. Without justice, you can have no peace.
Well, we thank you very much, Minnie. That was absolutely wonderful. And thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Hello, I'm Grace Hawkins, and I've been a member of Atlanta Grandmothers for Peace from the beginning. When my husband and I moved here from Washington State, I was looking for a group of like-minded people to join. I was a member of the Democratic Party in Washington and a peace activist. And I found Georgia Peace and Justice, where I met Ann Money and Judy Condor. But within the group, different grandmothers are focused on different things. The other grandmothers have done amazing things. There's one who washes the feet of the homeless and provides them with socks. Some make mats for homeless people. And one of our members has been a very hard worker through the recent election. I can't really, single them all out because they have all had very strong interests. And some of them are in their 80s and as strong in their activism and in their work as they've ever been. So that has been one of my great pleasures of being in Atlanta Grandmothers for Peace. It's meeting these other activists and just being part of this very inspirational group of women. I want to thank them for their sisterhood these last close to 15 years now. So that's it. I'm Grace Hawkins, and I appreciate your attention to Atlanta Grandmothers for Peace.
I'm Janice Tate Gresham, and I've been a member of the Grandmothers for Peace about 5 or 6 years. I followed a dear friend there, Minnie Ruffin, whom I dearly admired. In fact, she's Dr. Ruffin. And she was a great she is a great activist, and she was here in Atlanta at the time. And so I started going around, and I admired the projects that the Grandmothers for Peace were involved in. In fact, they were about justice, about getting justice for anyone who needed justice. Sometimes they were down giving out clothes for the homeless. Sometimes they were going down to the bus station, meeting the people, the immigrants, and feeding them and giving them love. And so all of this was a wonderful tribute to their the activities. And then I learned that they had been arrested in the past, and of course I didn't want to be in that activity, but they were very bold and they're adventurous women and fearless, really fearless. And so then when it came for time for voter registration, they gave her hand there. And so they were active in getting people registered to vote. And then most importantly, when our dear Dr. Raphael Warnock ran for Senate, they were writing postcards. And so I asked them to bring me some. So I had not engaged in that activity ever. And I found it very rewarding. I did 50 because that was the project of the Grandmothers for Peace. And so those are the type of activities that I admired about these women. And whenever it came a time to have a voice in something, they would give you, not only say, write your leaders, but they gave you the name, the address, and so you had nothing to do but sit there and write them. And so they made it just easy to be a helping hand. So the Grandmothers for Peace are a bold, fearless group of women whom I dearly admire, and I'm so glad to be a part of them. And I plan to continue as much as I can.
Hello to everybody. I am a proud member of the group known as Grandmothers for Peace. My name is Josephine Jackson with a hyphen Smith. And I will be 95 years old in June. And I heard about, amazingly, my niece Janice Tate Gresham called me one day and asked if I would like to go with her on a trip. Well, she had asked me to go on other trips, and I decided this time I would go without knowing where I was going. It was a hot day. I do remember that. It was a hot summer day. So the next day, I drove my car over to where she lived, and we got on the bus, and we were headed toward the museum. The museum that had not been too long built, that gave information about our ancestors, things that took place during the days of slavery. But the main thing is that I finally found out that this was a group referred to as Grandmothers for Peace. And that sounded good to me. So we we stopped en route and we had lunch. I won't talk about the lunch. I had some reaction to it later on in the evening. But it gave me an opportunity to find out something about our African American ancestors, especially those who had been enslaved. It gave me also to find out something about this group of women who were so proud. And I liked them, and I still like them. So anyway, ever since then, they invited me to join the group. My niece had given me this t-shirt. She had an extra one, so I was able to look like the rest of the people when we reached our final destination. The destination had to do with a group of women who were headed to the border to give some assistance to the immigrants. Well, a couple of weeks later, a meeting was held and I was there. And I've been with the group ever since. I'm proud of the work that they do. I'm not able to do as much as they are doing in order to help with the civil rights issues that come up. But I'm proud of their support. Thank you for listening to me. Signing off. Thank you.
My name is Joan DeWitt. I'm 77 years old and I am from Lima, Ohio. I'm a retired nurse and I've always been a caring person, and that has given me a nurturing spirit over the years. In 1989, I moved to Atlanta, Georgia for a 1-year commitment to live and work at the Open Door Community, a facility on Ponce de Leon that is no longer there, but at the time extended hospitality to the homeless and had a death row ministry to visit the inmates that were on death row. In 2011, Ann Hughes invited me to come to my first Grandmothers for Peace meeting. I have many memories of the different events that we attended over the years. I'm reminded of probably one of the first events was to go on a Friday afternoon to Colony Square and to stand on a corner with the protesters that were there protesting the war. I remember having gone to Central Presbyterian Church. Yes, it was Central Presbyterian Church for a press conference that Mary Oliver was present to be there to talk about gun control. I remember also Betsy Michaelton, who headed up a essay contest for aspiring students, and the reception was held at my church to award the first place winner a $500 scholarship, which I was so impressed with all of that. In the summer of 2018, there was a group from New York that called themselves the Grannies Respond, and they were going to the border, Matamoros, to protest the separation of children from their parents. There was a rally going to be held, and so a group of 23 grandmothers from Atlanta caravan to Montgomery, Alabama, to meet up with these women. The 23 grandmothers came back to Atlanta after the day spent with the women that were going to go on to New York. A few days later, Gloria Tatum and I made the decision to attend the rally. We got together to collaborate and to come up with a plan to meet the basic needs of all of these travelers that were coming from the border and were traveling by Greyhound bus to various destinations in America. What we did, we set up a network of Greyhound bus stations from Houston all the way down to Atlanta, and we would communicate to each other how many were on the buses and what the needs might be. We provided help at the Greyhound bus station. This is all supplies that I keep in my home. What happens here, these are all asylum seekers who have been waiting in Matamoros, which is right at the border of Brownsville and Matamoros, Mexico. A lot of them have been, through the Biden administration, granted to come over across the bridge to come into the United States. And they don't have anything. A lot of them just have what's on their back. There's a lot of babies, and there's, they need diapers, so we provide diapers for the babies. And we greet them in Atlanta, Georgia at the Greyhound bus station. But we have a network, and since the 27th of February, we've been able to give out this stuff to 274 people. And they're all very grateful. A lot of them are very hungry, they're very sad, they've either left loved ones behind or don't know what their future holds, but we just try to give them some hope, and it's been good. It's been good. This is a snack kit that we take down to the Greyhound bus station, and in the snack kit, we have a blanket here. We have what we call a hygiene kit that has hand sanitizer and a comb and toothbrush, toothpaste, a few other items. And then we also have our snack kit, we call it, that has a bottle of water, a pack of soup, some cheese crackers, a granola bar, and some little, they're called little fruity, like gummies. So we give each one of the folks that get off the Greyhound bus a package of one of these so that they can they'll have something on the bus to eat and they can keep warm. We give each one of the children some sort of a toy to play with, be it a little coloring book and crayons or a book to read and look at. We give the little tiny infants a little plush toy that they can hold on to, and it gives them some means of security. We provide for the women sanitary pads, and we also provide, but the people are always very happy. We give them fruit, we give them bananas and halos, and we've been taking milk, little cartons of milk for the kids, because it's a long drive from Matamoros to Brownsville and then into Houston, where the bus leaves, and it's like 17 hours. So they're hungry and they're very grateful for all this stuff that we, these are people that are very broken, very, you know, a lot of them are very hungry, they're very sad, they've either left loved ones behind or don't know what their future holds, but we just try to give them some hope, and it's been good. But we give them, you know, toothbrushes and toothpaste, and you know, the women have no access to any kind of sanitary pads. The babies have no access to diapers, so we get them all packaged up and take them down with us. And then at the end of the evening, we always take a bag of candy and we pass out chocolates to the little ones, and they love it. Yep. And I love it. This brings me so much joy and happiness. We were able to do this until actually Greyhound bus station closed us down, and we were away for a short period, but I took some tables and some couple of committed volunteers back down to the Greyhound bus station, and we set up these tables across the street from the Greyhound, and we are back down there with a few very committed volunteers. Since May of 2020, I have been a part of the Atlanta Casa Alterna. We are a volunteer group that meets and helps detainees that are released from Stewart Detention Center get to their proper gates at the airport. Upon the detainees' release, ICE takes these detainees to the groom transportation in Columbus, Georgia. And there is a group called Pasamigos that meets with them and helps them with their transportation needs. And the Pasamigos put them on a bus to Atlanta Airport, and they communicate to us in Atlanta, the Casa Alterna group, that there are folks coming in and that they need assistance getting to their gates. So we meet them at the South Terminal, the Delta S3 door, and take them. We get their boarding passes, we get a gate pass for ourselves, and we take them through the security to make sure that they can get to their gate. So many of these guys don't speak English, and they, a lot of them are afraid, and so we want to just be a support for them and assure them that we are there for them and that we're going to get them on their proper flight. And it's been a lot of good experiences with that over the year. Just want to say that I love doing what I do. It's been a joy, and my goal is to continue to do what I'm doing until I can't do it anymore.
Myers Brown. I'm 83, almost 84, and I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I think my activism began in 1894 because my grandfather, the Reverend Harry W. Myers Jr., before he was ordained, his first sermon, which I have handwritten, the original paper, very fragile, was on James, whatever it is, 1:22. Be ye doers of the word and not hearers only. So my activism goes 3 generations back. 58 years ago, I was ordained a minister in the United Church of Christ. But I believe every woman that has spoken here is a minister in the greatest sense of the word, of caring about all creation, all people, and God's love, however you explain God, however you explain love. And we're all working towards a beloved community, as Martin Luther King Jr. challenged us and calls us. My activism began when, as a high school student in Pennsylvania and Philadelphia. But when it came time to go to college, I chose Elon so I could save the South in 4 easy years. And I got in some trouble. But I went to seminary in Hartford, Connecticut, and remember somebody mentioned the Woolworth marches. I remember being part of that, Integrate Woolworth. While I was at Hartford, I met an Angolan activist and some friends who had been missionaries in Angola, Africa, and I learned about the struggle there, and that the church was a witness to the fact that people have a right to self-expression, to freedom, and so on. Anyhow, I ended up in Angola. I felt a real call to be a part of what the church was doing there, and was in Angola for 12 years, still under colonialism, but as they were just about finally to get independence. I was evacuated in the end of 1975. And for a year, did a lot of speaking and media work about the struggle for independence and what it meant for people to value themselves, and anyway, very much caught up in all that. When I couldn't get back into Angola, where I had a real passion and a commitment, and a lot of people I loved and had left behind, I took a position with the Office for Church Life and Leadership, based as the Southern Regional Contact here in Atlanta. And I got caught up in a lot of different issues. And early on, became a part of Stand for Peace. We were demonstrating and working against Governor Reagan policy in Central America. And we had a Lenten witness in 1987 on the steps of the Capitol in Washington, where we prayed for the people of Central America who were being killed by the death squads and so on and so forth. And then we went into the Capitol, into the rotunda, knelt, and each of us had the name of people who had been killed because of American policy. And when we knelt and prayed for those folks, we were arrested because we were trespassing. And we were in jail in DC, and bologna sandwiches. Whoever talked about prison, was that Bertie? For 3 days, we ate nothing but sickening bologna sandwiches full of mayonnaise and sweet tea so sickening. You were very thirsty. But we did get to make statements, and that was very important to me at the time. Meanwhile, back here, I met my husband. Falling in love at 50 is nifty. And married the Reverend Edward Martin Brown III, who had worked with Andy Young. Andy spoke at Ed's memorial service in 2002. Ed had an office in the same building with MLK and was at the organization of SNCC. Ed and I got very involved with Stand for Peace since 2002. And the last 19 years, Stand for Peace has been there every Friday, except during the pandemic. But I remember especially our anniversaries in August when John Lewis were a part of us. And that group will start again, and by the way, on August 30th, we're going to be out there again. Something that's very dear to my heart, going back to the 80s, is the policies that this government has followed. This goes back decades and decades and centuries around the world. How we have worked against people's self-realization and against freedom and against opportunity. And when I was on the national staff of the UCC, I traveled through Central America a lot, spent time there. I represented our denomination fasting for a week with Miguel Descoto in Nicaragua in the 80s. And in recent times, what brought me into Grandmothers for Peace, I was there the day that you all tried to enlist in the Army. I remember giving water to Bernice because I knew some of you through Stand for Peace. And I've been in parallel groups with y'all all this time. But I didn't actually join Grandmothers for Peace until about 3 years ago, when I found that y'all had gotten involved with Grannies Respond and Atlanta Transit Angels. That took me back to my passion about justice and opportunity for the people of Central America. And so I got very involved and started in whenever it was, 2018 or 19, going to the omnibus station. These asylum seekers would come through, and sometimes the Greyhound. All of that pretty much stopped, as you know, during pandemic. But not only has started up again, but with a great deal of activity, because Biden is letting people, the administration is letting people through. And the people that I met during those months when we were able to do it, it just stirred my soul. And I can't tell stories because we don't have time. And I'm jumping around over almost 84 years, and I apologize for that. I did take notes, but the more people talk, the more I thought, oh, I'd like to talk about that. I'd like to talk about that. I love Grandmothers for Peace because you are my kind of people. You are activists. You are people who care. My big passion now, not just the voter suppression bill. My church started a drive that ended up getting 460 signatures on a letter to Kemp, which we presented at his office 3 weeks ago. That group, which was a group of Black pastors and white pastors that came together, is working together now in a bunch of activities. And racial justice has got to be where we are focused in all of this, because this ties in with everything. Environmental justice, and ties in with women's justice, ties in with everything, the structural racism in this country. And that's what I am working on, along with these other things, and it is a passion of mine, and certainly of Grandmothers for Peace, because Grandmothers for Peace believes in a world that is peaceful, with people of all colors and races given opportunity to be together in the beloved community. And I'll take a breath and shut up.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I wish you didn't have to shut up, but we thank you so much. And it's just amazing where you started and where you are still to this day working for all of us. And I thank you, and I'm sure the world thanks you very much.
My name's Gloria Tatum. I am 78 years old. I grew up in Dawsonville, Georgia, which is a small Republican conservative mountain town. When I was 6 years old, a woman called my mother and said, "You keep that blank little communist away from my door." And I was raising money for hungry children in Europe. And I said, what's a communist? So anyway, shades of things to come. Later, when I lived in Atlanta, in the 80s, I volunteered with the Anti-Klan Network, and I monitored Klan activity in North Georgia. And I was on the bus with Hosea Williams up in Cumming, Georgia, when it was attacked by the Klan. And Maurice Dees with the Southern Poverty Law Center sued the Klan for violating their civil rights, and we bankrupted them at that time. But of course, with Trump, they're all back. And I was also attacked by skinheads because I was opposing the Contra War, and I went with a church group to the borders of Nicaragua and Honduras, because if Americans were in the villages there, the Contras wouldn't attack. And then during the Iraq War, I was working with Georgia Peace and Justice, and on the media, we were protesting in the streets for years and trying to get the media to tell our side of the story. And then Ann Monty heard about the grandmothers up in New York that were going to jail, and this is where the idea and the organization came from, for us to go to jail to try to get more media attention. And I was really upset because Bush and Cheney and that administration, and they lied to Congress, they lied to the American people about Iraq having weapons of mass destruction, and that they were a nuclear threat and they had ties to Al Qaeda. Well, none of that was true. But for some reason, the Democrats, who I'm sure most of them knew better, believed that big lie, and most of the media reported that lie as the truth. And I remember Bush going on TV. He would talk about 9/11, and then he would switch over to Saddam Hussein and talk about how dangerous Iraq was and their ties to Al Qaeda, when Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. They just totally substituted Saddam Hussein for Osama bin Laden, and it seemed to work with a lot of the public. So I was upset about the lies and how everyone was believing the lies. So we, in order to get more media coverage, 10 of us went to jail, and we told the recruiters that we wanted them to bring the young people home, and we were old, and send us instead, and they could kill us and let the young people live. And anyway, we were arrested, and we were in jail, I don't know, about 12, 15 hours, I guess. And then we were let out, and a tornado hit Atlanta, so they covered that instead of us. Anyway, the difference between Trump's big lie today and Bush's big lie is that the media, most of the media, is not reporting Trump's lies, the truth, and that's sort of encouraging. But anyway, I've been an activist for over 50 years. I've worked with almost everybody in Atlanta. There's never been a progressive issue I did not like. And then I was recruited by Atlanta Progressive News to write. So now I have my own blog, Streets of Atlanta, covering social issues. And I hope to die in the streets of Atlanta, covering a story or being in a protest.
Wow. That's just wonderful. I mean, I will certainly check out. Tell me again the name of where you're writing again. Tell me.
Streets of Atlanta.
Okay.
Blog.
Okay, great. Thank you. We will check that out. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that you brought up Bush. You brought up the KKK. You brought up Trump. And all three of these things tie in together, and they're interwoven to basically tell us that hatred is not needed. And through what your ladies are doing, you are making a change. You are making a change. Some people might think it's small, but every step that we take toward kindness, what you're doing, and the streets of Atlanta would be happy and honored to see you out there again on the corner of, is it 14th or 12th and Peachtree? Colony Square.
I think
14th.
14th Street, thank you.
14th Street.
14th Street. Well, when you ladies go out there, I'm coming out there with you. You've inspired me, and we thank you so much.
Fontana. I just turned 75. One of the youngsters here with Judy. And was born in Astoria, Queens, New York City. I am honored to be here with the women that, I mean, I knew some of the stuff, but to hear more of what people have done in their lives and where you all come from, it's amazing. So I love it. And I'm one of you because even though I'm not a biological mother or grandmother, I found out that I could be a member. I started activism back probably in college, Queens College, because I was a member of a student help project. And then I became an anti-war activist during the Vietnam War at that time. And that's how I already started getting into support work for various causes. I only knew the civil rights movement through TV, what was happening. So after college, I joined VISTA, Volunteers in Service to America, which is part of the War on Poverty at that time. And that's how I got down to Atlanta, Georgia. I got sent to Atlanta to work here. as a community organizer in Vista in West End. And then I started my real education in life, because I already knew I was a leftist, a lefty, and reading about stuff. I knew I was a socialist. I knew I was an anti-racist person. I knew this stuff, but then I started being able to actually get into combining what I knew about anti-imperialism, anti-racism, anti-war with actual other people and working in organizations. Long story, but I did come out down here, and I moved down to Atlanta after Vista. I decided to live here. I was going to graduate school at the time, and ended up coming out, helping to form the first lesbian organization here, Atlanta Lesbian Feminist Alliance. And in Alpha, I became someone who was very often a representative of Alpha, of those lesbians and the queer community in other organizations. Like Gloria, I was a supporter and did work with the National Anti-Klan Network, and C.T. Vivian. He was just so wonderful a person, a wonderful man. Always remember that. And the Socialist Feminist Women's Union, and was a member of that also. So lots of what now called intersectional work. I always saw the connections with all that work, supporting the Black Panthers and Black liberation struggles after the Civil Rights Movement struggles. So when I basically, Georgia Justice and Peace and Coalition, and with Ann also and other women here, is how I got to know some of the other people that are now in the grandmas. I didn't think I could be a member, because I'm not a grandma. So I found that afterwards, after the first CD action, that they were open to people who were grandmotherly age and who had that wanting to save our grandkids from some of the things we had seen. So I became a member. And you all took my, stories I was going to tell. The story I was going to tell was already told by lots of other people about the Peace Essay Contest. And I love that John Lewis agreed to be the person who would give the awards to the students that one year. And he was there, and he wore one of our T-shirts. We have pictures of this, one of our T-shirts at the event. We still have a few of these left, so anybody seeing this who's not in the group is interested, find us on Facebook, Atlanta Grandmothers for Peace, or me, and we'll see if we can get you a T-shirt. We also have, by the way, this wonderful bag.
Awesome.
That we had for fundraising. We still have a lot of these. It's a very big, a very useful, a very usable bag. So remember that if you are interested in helping us money-wise, to buy one of those bags from us, and we'll be glad for that. And since I missed the arrest, the CD arrest when you started, it inspired me. And later on, during Moral Monday, Georgia, which a lot of y'all were involved with also, and as Minnie said, we got arrested doing CD actions. She was in one of those groups. So I arrested 4 times at 4 different things we were supporting or pushing or fighting against during the Moral Monday, Georgia times. And I must say that more recently, I've done, during the pandemic, before the pandemic started, I joined the local Extinction Rebellion group, which was a lot of young folks in that. And seeing the connection of it with environmental justice and the necessity of what's happening being highlighted. So I got arrested a couple of times before the pandemic started because they were real big on doing CD actions and getting attention to the issue. But then the pandemic happened. And one thing we were able to do during the time was a lot of older folks, seniors, were doing corner stands. So I know a lot of people here involved in doing those stands on various corners and places in Atlanta in support of Black Lives Matters that was going on, and then in support of getting out the vote and making sure that people helped turn the Senate, which we did. And so that was, even though I was a little afraid of going into any kind of meeting areas or, that kind of thing. We could do that. And Judy and I, for instance, hung out with banners for quite a while on the corner. I love being in Grandmothers for Peace. I was hoping that we would do more CD action, but there are other places, I guess, where I could go to do more of those, and I'm really looking forward to keep on doing the work that we've been doing. Thank you, and I'm sorry about
It's okay. It's all good. We're very pleased that you are here and supporting the LGBTQ community as well. And I love the t-shirt. We're going to buy some of your bags. How much are your bags? You got to tell us. What do we have to pay to get the t-shirt, the bags?
$20.
Whoa, okay. We're going to see if we can get you some orders for those bags. And if you have any more t-shirts or whatever, we'll see if we can get you some of those. And we so you're a New Yorker. What am I saying? All right?
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much.
The Grandmothers for Peace are a bold, fearless group of women whom I dearly admire, and I'm so glad to be a part of them.
We must put progressive people in place. We must put people in place that speak truth to power. No longer can we sit on the sidelines and be quiet. What do we want? Justice!